So, yeah, Reincarnation Assistant is as interesting as I thought it might be. I'm not entirely sure why I thought it might not be as fun as it was. Yeah, it was not thoroughly, but certain parts, especially when it concerned Dante, it was indeed funny. Although I was surprised, it wasn't quite, there weren't quite any references to an inferno, But no, yeah, otherwise, it was like, there's many others that are short. I mean, most of them are short. Many, though, leave the player wanting, as in, the player ends up thinking, at least, I personally thought that they weren't, self-contained or, finished, even though, I mean, obviously, regardless of game's length, it can feel finished, although, I'm sure most can just keep on going if they really wanted to, suppose. This though, yeah, this was it did. I mean, it did what it professed to do. I mean, it was about an assistant. It wasn't even about the reincarnation god. So as much as it was about the assistant, I mean, at times it did feel a bit bureaucratic. Like at the very end there, it felt like it's one of those quarterly reports or something. But otherwise, most of the descriptions were fun, as I said, especially when concerned. The first one I got, I think, was that one with Dante, where it said he was just considered an urban legend after escaping from. So yeah, when it comes to writing and not necessarily showing, because many games try to show instead of simply write about, but this one didn't so much show because obviously it was set in a single office, of course, so it didn't so much show per se, mainly just wrote in terms of what is possible. So it relied a lot on descriptions. It was a descriptive game, and that doesn't necessarily take away from it being imaginative, potentially. I suppose it doesn't. I suppose it's so yeah, it does what it's supposed to do. So as much as as far as small games go, it's effective. I think it's I don't know why, but I compared it in my mind because it was something I played in the past. Obviously, I can only compare with others I played already, obviously, for obvious time-related reasons. But something somewhat similar, set in a very small single room as well, was the game about forging a key, forging onwards, I believe it was called. So this is the thing, though. It was similarly, very short as well, and relied on mechanics. I mean, this didn't so much rely on mechanics as they weren't really mechanics. It was a vehicle for the comedy mainly, wasn't it? I mean, it wasn't really much else. Although, in a way, it's sort of similar. You just grab objects and in the other one's case, combine them and such. And in this one, just one to two, two to two. Anyway, so. Yeah, but the other one didn't so much. Didn't have any narrative at all, and as far as narrative goes, this did what it set out to do. Which is being comedic. Although there were a few lines that were a bit strange, just a bit. So slightly. Especially one. But yeah, I mean, otherwise, most of it was funny. I'm not sure why I thought it would be anything other than funny. It reminded me of not quite. I mean, on the same level of. I mean, because with the title as it was, although I guess if I saw the whole title here, actually, I think the title is Reincarnation Assistant, isn't it? So yeah, it is. But the whole title on the game itself would obviously make it obvious that indeed it's a comedy. It's very similar to many anime or manga titles that are almost always comedic. By the way, when it comes to typos, there were only like one extra is and a two possibly, so yeah, not much. You can only be comedic if you have a really long title. So yeah, now it reminded me not of anime technically, although it is animation. An animation, a French animation this time called Mortis, and anyone watching would see why it's reminiscent of it, because it's also about not so much a reincarnation, but the symbol of death itself, which is sort of an adjacent concept, I suppose, to reincarnation. And instead of an assistant, though, she has her child there. In a similar vein to the comedy here, though, the child screws up. I guess it doesn't exactly happen similarly here, but it's sort of similar. But Mortis has more of an existential sort of thing to it, but it is sort of quoted in comedy as well. So both of them share something similar, but this isn't so much, existential. It's a lot of philosophical, I suppose. It could if it wanted to, but it doesn't really use that at all. I suppose it just wanted to go the whole comedy route. Mortis, though, tries to balance both. I think it does it quite well. It's an animation, so kind of different from this. This did have a lot of options, choices, which is obviously what video games can do. Animation obviously cannot. And the problem, of course, with choices is that people could possibly miss some of them. Of course, when it comes to games made in an engine with a file there, so not having just one exe and that's it, which obviously pretty much inaccessible and all usually. Sure enough, images were encrypted, but I didn't so much need the images for this one game. What I was curious about indeed was how the events were constructed, and it was interesting. There were several, so it wasn't quite as compact as a recent, the other game totally devoted to battles called A World of Ruins, in the same category, which literally just uses single event. But that's not the point. The point is that, though, I think for such a small game, it still had a lot. One event had 12 pages, so that's quite a lot for such a small game. Of course, that's the point. That's what happens when it comes to choices. There's a lot of choices, and there was also a script, so that so it was kind of complex for such a literally just a game in a single room with just for comedic reasons, So in a way, it's just sort of funny in itself that for something so simple can spawn 12 pages within a single event. That's quite a lot within that single computer device. Of course, it would have been interesting, I suppose, if you could go into the office itself that was behind the door, but no, there was nothing there. I often wonder, when that happens, there's secretly there's an office, and but they didn't bother to make a transfer event, but no, not this time. Certainly, there was really nothing. But yeah, otherwise, with regards to the comedy itself, it is funny. That's what it intends to do. So I guess. So anyway, if there was a longer game, as long as it's not just the same thing over many hours, it's something else, something expanded, I would play it honestly.